I think that is really powerful because especially if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, it's easy to put on the mask. How many men go to work, they put in the grind, they're wearing the weight of the finances, are the kids good? Is my wife taken care of? And they come home and they sit in their car for 5-10 minutes trying to get it off of their hearts and put on a good face so that they can walk into the house.
What up? What up? Yo, welcome to another edition of a Father's Heart Podcast with my main man, Cole. What it do, Cole? What it do?
I'm in the building. You see the beard is on the flow. I know y'all see it. It's just it's doing its thing. It's growing. So I'm glad to be in the building. I
promise you, none of us asked you about your beard.
Yeah. I'm talking to the viewers out there. I'm talking to my guys, the women. Yeah, they know. So what's up, everybody?
Boy, man. Yo, listen, man.
What you talking about, man?
Man, listen, let's tap right into it. Man. We are talking about a serious topic tonight. Listen, I want to make sure that we maximize this time and really hone in on this. And so, to our viewers, who we have on tonight, man, is a really good friend of mine, Jody Sedrick, who has a podcast called Fyre, right? Fyre's Fire. How do I say it?
Father's Fire.
Yes, Father's Fire. That's that tongue twister podcast.
Yes.
And I watched his podcast last week with his son, and it was super dope to have to see how him and his son was communicating on the podcast. It was super dope, and when I began to listen to it, I was like, yo, I gotta have them on, Cole. And without a hesitation, both of them said, yo, we will have this discussion. And so, listen, man, I just want to let both of you know we appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. And like we said behind the scenes, man, you go as deep as you want to go. You stay as surface, man. But I think it's a topic that, that needs to be discussed and that needs to be talked about. And it's not being talked about a lot, especially amongst men. And so today, man, I want to talk about suicide and men struggling by themselves, right? And not knowing how to navigate that space, right? And we're gonna go deep tonight. So if you can share the podcast, you might know somebody, might be somebody in your timeline that you don't even know that may be struggling with this very thing, right? So if that's the case, please share it. I don't know if y'all hear that. Somebody calling me, knowing I'm live. Boy, they something else, man. Like, I'm like, listen, do not disturb me.
Listen,
boy, hey, Christian, that lets you know that. Listen, we straight raw. Let you know we straight raw.
Yeah, dude. Any minute Sean camera could go out. Any minute I might, just completely disappear. So it's just.
So listen, man. So let's tap in. So Christian and Jody, talk to us. Jody, talk to us, man.
I first of all, thanks for having us on. It's interesting the timing of our conversation tonight, because I actually got 2 nights ago, I got a message from a listener of my podcast, and they said, hey, I just want to let you know that the things that you and your son talked about really hit home. And I texted back, I'm like, do you want to talk? And he said, well, he goes, I'm not sure how much detail I want to go into, but when it's ready, I need to talk to you. And that re-emphasized to me that we have an underlying current in our society, especially among men, where we can't talk about depression, anxiety, the weight on our shoulders. And so what happens is we end up bottling all this tension and emotion and feelings up, and we never address the real issue. And we were talking about attempted teen suicide in our, between Christian and I's conversation. But one of the things that's really scary to me is, you know, 7 out of 10 suicides between the ages of 40 and 65 are men. 70%. That is a staggering number, right? And so we have to create an environment where we can talk about it. And it's tough, right? Because for a lot, a year ago, I did a 4-part series on my experience with attempted teen suicide. And it was raw, it was heartfelt. I just broke it down, right? But I was trying to be very sensitive to the fact that while it was my child's story and I wanted to be sensitive of their feelings, I also wanted to share that it's my story too as a father.
So which is powerful, right? And you do have a story, in this, and I want to hear that story, because there may be a father or just a parent, right? There's a parent who is struggling with the child who may be battling with this, and they're the only ones that know. And so, Christian, can you, right now you are thriving, you are an actor,
That's the brother that's the actor. He's the artist.
Oh, he's the artist? I thought you say he's the actor.
That's his brother.
Oh, okay. So you just got all type of talent in your crib.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stuff.
When you got 6 kids, there's a lot going on.
Okay. So can you talk to us, man, of what led you? Like, how did you get to that space mentally where that was even an option? You know what I mean? Right? Because I'm quite sure, I could tell you're a nice looking young, man. Quite sure you didn't have any problem connecting with people or whatever the case. So I'm quite sure you was popular. At least that's my own assumption, right? And I may be wrong. Yeah. So just help us understand, like, who were you and how did you get there?
No, like right now, currently, I probably have like the least amount of friends that I think I've ever had, but I'm definitely in the best place that I've ever been. But back when like I was dealing with a lot of problems and like suicidal thoughts and like anxiety, depression, like the whole yard, like I had tons of friends. Like I had like more people that I could hang out with that I could count, and it was not. And part of that was because none of those people really knew me, and it was hard for me to talk to those people about what I was going through. And like, I felt like what I was going through was such a unique thing and such an isolated thing to me. Like I would just isolate myself in my own like spare time. And then when I was out with like other people, like I would just let loose and I would just cut that entire part of my life off and then just like put on a face for everybody, But it was just like a really hard time in my life. I was dealing with I was 18, 19. Like there was a lot of things that was going on though. Like grandpa passing away, like Cincha's
attempted
suicide. Like my own dog, like my very first dog got hit by a car, and that all happened within like a similar week, And so like things just started going out of hand. And then I was also like, I was young and I was like 19. Well, I'm still young, like I'm only 25, but I was like 19 at the time. And I was like questioning like adulthood and like trying to figure out who I was. And so that's very challenging, and trying to figure out how life works, and like, I remember like not being able to talk to any of my friends and not really understanding how I felt, and it was very difficult. Like all my friends were like, they were good. Like I had a few good friends and a few friends that I could talk to, but it never felt like the way that me and my older brother talk. Like I've talked to my older brother about this stuff, and he's probably one of the people that know me the best when it comes to that, you know. And it's hard not having that community or that family, like in a friendship. I feel like you need a person, people in your family that can be that rock for you, and then you also need your friends, like at least a few friends to be a rock for you as well. And it's hard to not have that circle around you, it's hard to only be able to rely on one side of like your relationships, which would be your family,
And
and
so,
that's a
Cole, go ahead. I see.
Yeah, no, I'm listening, but I'm also you know taking notes, but also recognizing the bravery that um, that it is in terms of telling the story. I think sometimes we forget how it's one thing to have the lived experience. It's another thing to tell the story. So I think one of the things I just appreciate right now is that that you guys both feel comfortable enough to share the story with the world, right? Because I think that's another piece to this puzzle. But I think one of the things that stands out for me too, as I'm listening, is this idea of you described it as putting on a face, and when I heard that, I instantly thought of the mask, and so part of me wonders how do we help people take off the mask, or how do we help men take off the mask so that they can be in a space where they can share those vulnerabilities or that feeling of isolation.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of the thing that just stood out to me. It's like, man, there are so many of us that are wearing these faces. Where do we go at some point where we can take it off? And so I'm just wondering, like, what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, well, I have a few buddies that they like definitely deal with like these issues, and they wear masks for sure. They're like some of the funniest guys I know, actually, and some of that like
And
it,
that's what I was going to ask you. What are those masks? What are
yeah,
those
like
masks?
for me, it's not like it's not super funny. I just like become like am just really nice to people, and I just like can talk to people, and I just go around being nice and just like talking to people. But like I have a few friends, like my buddy deals with extreme alcoholism, like was like a heroin addict for a very long time, and he's obviously off of it now. But he deals with all these like internal problems, and he is just the funniest guy I know. He's so funny. But like you hang out with him, and then you can always, if you hang out with somebody long enough, you can always catch it, and you can like see
Mm.
it coming up. And so I think a huge part of it is you have to just be present. You have to be there. You have to spend time with these people. Like they might not ask for help in like a traditional way, like, oh, I'm feeling sad, but they'll be like, oh, do you want to like hang out? And you're like, it's a Tuesday. Why do you want to hang out? Like that's kind of weird, And you have to be able to recognize that this is probably one of those times that he needs a little bit of support and he needs a friend. And so then you go, and he'll probably put on a mask for you. Like that's happened a few times. They'll probably put on a mask for you for a while, but eventually like something clicks, and and that's when you jump in and you kind of like want to hurry on that moment, and you're just like, hey, like, is everything all right? Like, just want to check in,
So,
like,
so you say something that's interesting to me, right? Because I'm thinking about people would say, "Yo, when you want to, people who want to hurt themselves, like you weak, and you're not strong. They just think it's like weak people, right?"
yeah,
And here, you mean, I look at you, I can tell you're far from that. And here is something that you battled with,
mm,
right? And that goes into that stereotype. And I think, like, because you're talking about being aware and being present, and a lot of times we are not present for those individuals that we believe and see on the outside that got it all together good.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I get you.
I think that is really powerful because, especially if you're struggling with anxiety or depression, it's easy to put on the mask. How many men go to work, they put in the grind, they're wearing the weight of the finances, are the kids good? Is my wife taken care of? And they come home and they sit in their car for 5-10 minutes trying to get it off of their hearts and put on a good face so that they can walk into the house. Right. And one of the things that was really challenging for me is because my daughter had so much tragedy from a very young age, right? It was At first it was very difficult to identify those signs, right? But over time, I began to tune in to these little masks that she would put on. She would become very talkative. She would want to be near me. And then other times she would want to pull away. And I got to the point where I could see, all right, we're starting on a downward trend because everything became too good. And I'm like, all right, what's going on? And I try to tap in, I try to listen. And sometimes they still put on the face, they still try to push, right? Because they're trying to figure it out. They're trying to put on the responsibility of being an adult or a teen or, that has it all together. And they're trying to work through it. But what they need to know is that they can work through it with you. And it's difficult to create that bridge so that they know that they can turn to you. Christian had, really good relationship with Devin. So that was real easy. And, to be honest, I didn't know the weight that Christian was struggling with because he had such a good shoulder to lean on in Devin. Right. And so it's this crazy dynamic because it's easy as a dad to be focused on the child that is struggling,
that is screaming the loudest.
It's more visible, right? But you still got to be cognizant of how this is affecting the entire family, all of the kids. And so Judy and I tried very hard to make sure that we were making time for each one of the kids so that they knew that it wasn't just this one kid that had our attention. You all have our attention, and we're trying to figure out how to move through it in a way that is beneficial for everybody in the family.
I like it, man. So Cole, at any time, man, please,
Yeah, no, there's so many things. I'm trying not to ask too many questions, right? Because I'm also trying to be present because listening is also a part of that. And I know we're doing a podcast, so there should be questions, but I'm also trying to hold space for listening because part of what keeps popping up in my head is just recognizing as a parent, there has to be a shift in what's happening with you in terms of your own self-assessment, right, Jody, in order to be able to really do the kind of work that it requires for you to be able to see over the balcony and recognize all the different characteristics or personality traits that might pop up that might be an alarm that is setting off for you to sort of say, hey, Dad, there's something going on with me. Because I think what Christian said is really profound, too, is that oftentimes men don't say, I need you. I might say, hey, what you doing on a Tuesday, which might feel weird to somebody, but I'm not going to just go out and just say, hey, Dad, I really need to sit down and talk to you. And this is the problem that I'm having. So it really requires this idea of being present. But most importantly, how do dads and moms show up for themselves to be present enough for what's going on within them to be able to see what's going on with their own children. And so, Jody, I'm really interested in hearing from you in terms of how were you able to make that shift? Because we spend a lot of time working with single parents who have multiple children, and there might not be a husband, there might not be a wife in that space. And so how did you guys make the decision, or where did you land with yourselves to be able to say, okay, this is what we need to do for all the kids? Um, yeah, I guess that's the question I'm trying to figure out. Like, how did y'all arrive there? Because it doesn't sound like that's something that just happened overnight.
No, and that's probably the biggest challenge of it all, right? Because I had to recognize that the way I had parented our first four children was not working for our two adopted children.
All right. Okay.
Right. We were attached. We were connected. We trusted each other. We loved each other. We had that foundation. And to bring two children with broken hearts and broken experiences into your home at 8 and 9, there is a lot of emotion, both good and bad, that they are unpacking. And it's interesting because we have this idea of what adoption, foster care, what it's going to look like. And we're excited, but the reality of the the pain in their hearts can be very difficult to bridge, to overcome. Right. And so I had to really step back, and where I could set a consequence for an action, I couldn't do that anymore because they didn't trust me. And so I had to figure out a way to build the trust through the way that I cared for them in a way that it would build that bridge so that we could move forward in a positive direction. And I had to recognize too that I was parenting hurt kids. And
That
when you're coaching single parents, they're parenting hurt kids. They're working through the loss of a dad or a mom. They're working through the pain of trying to blend two families together. All of a sudden, I have stepsisters or stepbrothers, half brothers, and they're like, dude, I don't even like this guy, and he's in my house, and I'm supposed to respect him and love him.
yeah.
Right? And so you have to create an environment where those feelings can be expressed in a healthy manner. And that does not always happen.
Yeah.
I remember a 3-hour temper tantrum, literally a 3-hour temper tantrum when we first, and Cynthia she doesn't remember it all about, but I remember all 3 hours, ripping clothes off, running outside, sitting on the couch in tears, praying to God to help me figure out what it is to help this little girl's heart. And she's spitting in my face, and I'm sitting there praying, and finally I'm just singing, right? And I'm just finally, we got through it, right? And so I think one of the challenges as a parent is our expectations do not align with where the child's heart is. And we need to meet them where their heart is so that they can work through the pain and the loss and the anguish that they're experiencing, instead of us just demanding and expecting that they be at a certain point, because they still haven't unpacked the pain in their heart.
So
And unpacking that often takes years of patience, love, and leaning into each other.
So you said so many things, right? One of the things I'm a firm believer in: when there's a conflict, don't move away, but move in. In addition to that, you're also pushing parents to also switch this paradigm in terms of how we see children. I'm a big believer in the way that we see children in this society is shameful in terms of like how we treat them, how they should behave, all of the things that come with these old school nuances and philosophies. And I think what you're doing is you're challenging parents to turn those messages and those ideas and those behavior practices that we've been doing and accustomed to doing from our own lived experiences as children with adults, in terms of how you learn how to parent upside down. And so, man, Jody, I really appreciate what you're sharing in this space, because I think it's so important that children do well when adults are well. And, adults can't continue to read the same book in terms of this is how you parent. And I think that there, and often I hear this thing like there's not one book that teaches you how to parent. And I'm like, yo, in this day and age, there are tons of books and there is tons of information and there's all kinds of styles in terms of you educating yourself on what, how to parent. But this idea of parenting the heart of a child is a really interesting space because we don't often think that way. But I've also learned too, to kind of add on to what you're saying, is that in order to be able to parent the heart of a child, I've also learned that the heart of that parent, that child and that parent also has to grow and be nurtured too. And so there has to be this combination of parents also healing from their own childhood wounds in order sometimes to be able to see the heart of their children. So I think that, man, you both are hitting on some topics and some lived experiences that, again, people just don't talk about. We don't hear enough of. And so, man, I thank you guys both again for moving us into this understanding of that parenting really is a paradigm shift, and you really got to do the work inwardly before you start teaching and practicing discipline on children outwardly. So thank you for that, man.
That is good. So, Christian, I wanna ask you. So what do you, just thinking back, like when you was in that space, right? When you was considering, contemplating, and I don't know if you where you are, you didn't share, like if you actually attempted, right? But my thing is like, what did you need when you look back in that moment? What did you need when you was going through your when you was in that space?
Yeah. No, like there's a lot of things that I needed. I needed a better support system
Mm.
from the friends that I had mainly. And probably at the time from like the family that we were raising. Like things were back then, things were still pretty hectic with everything, and there was just like not a lot of time, to like make sure. Well, I didn't also feel like I was like an important enough issue, and I feel like that's like a huge thing. Is like I didn't feel like I like needed to bother these people with my time and my issues, and
Wow.
so like I just wouldn't. And like my friend group wasn't necessarily the most supportive. Like they were understanding, but like we all come from these different families and we come from all these different backgrounds. It's hard to feel like you relate to somebody. And so like there was like a few nights where I was like, well, there was one night in particular where like all of my roommates were gone, and like I was just like, and I was recently also just done with like a breakup and stuff, and it was just like felt like I was spiraling. And like I had like the belt and I was like, okay, like this is something that I'm gonna do. And then I like kind of like were like stepped a little bit back, and then I like called Devin and I was like, like I just want to reach out one more time, and I'm glad that I did, you know. And it's one of those things that, it's scary to reach out, and it's scary to like think about people in those ways, especially if you haven't done it. Like my older brother, like in high school, we didn't really talk about that kind of stuff. And it was only until like I started really like dealing with it and like really like facing it, was like when he became that person for me. But before that, it wasn't. But it's hard to like find those people that are willing to fill that role for you, and then also like take that step and not necessarily asking them, because it's hard to ask for the people to fill those roles, but just have them like trust them with that information, and that's definitely the hardest part, is like just finding people you can trust.
There's two things that I want to point out from that. So last week, Christian talked about it developed an independence in him that he wasn't anticipating having to do. Right. So a lot of times as young kids, especially in a family dynamic where you have hurt children, it unintentionally forces your other kids to react in a certain way, or they respond to their perception of what is needed for them, or they don't want to become a burden. Because honestly, this is the first time that I've ever heard of this instance where he had the belt and he needed to call Christian. And it's easy as a dad to go, what didn't I do? What didn't I see? What wasn't I enough? Right? That he would turn to me. But I'm thankful that we have a strong enough family dynamic that he had somebody within our family circle that he could turn to and go, hey, can I just talk to you? I'm really struggling. I need to step back and breathe. Can you help me think through this in a way that my clouded mind? Because we got to understand, it's not that these people are weak. It's that they want the pain and the darkness in their heart just to stop. And they're willing to do anything to get the pain to stop. It's not that they want to die, they want the pain to stop. Right? And so we have to create environments where we can lean on each other. And sometimes you're not the one that gets leaned on, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay not to be the one that's leaned on.
Yeah.
But it is important that we create an environment where someone can be leaned on.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Like, and I think that's really powerful, because I think my parents fall apart when they learn something tragic or hear something about their children that they thought or believed that their children should have been able to talk to them about, right? But the truth of it is that the goal for parents is really to create the space, to create the environments, to create the brave and safe places where children can grow and thrive. And if you're doing that within the sanctuary of wherever you are, then you will equip other people that are in your home to be that for each other. And so I love that. And that's what I'm going to take away tonight and use in my work to work with dads, is that you don't have to carry the weight of being everything for everybody. You just have to make sure that you create the spaces for people to be there for each other. That right there, hands down, man, is I don't even.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep. No,
that's how you lead. That's how you guide. That's
yeah,
how you,
absolutely.
Boy.
Yeah. No, that's real, right? Because, and what I love about this moment, right? This is a real transparent moment, because you look, Christian made a statement.
Yeah.
Jody, you as a father sitting next to him, right? And because my next question or statement was going to be, a lot of times us as parents, we take on the burden. We take on the burden of our children, and take on the burden of the situation, and we take it personal. We take it personal, like, what didn't I do, or whatever the case, right? We take on that burden. But what I want to just acknowledge in this moment is that I love what you said. It was beautifully stated on that he had a brother or somebody else to lean on. When you listen to a lot of great coaches, they said the best teams are player-led teams. When the head coach have to lead everybody and do everything, that team is not going to go very far, even in the organization or company. And it's no different than a household. If the only people that are holding people accountable or creating a space for people to be authentic and be able to share, if it's only the parents, I don't know how strong that family really is. Right? So those strongest families, that we need to make sure that our families are being led by the family and not just the parent. Right? The parent lead and show the way, but the children and all of those involved need to know their role, so that way they can show up. Because as a parent, man, you worrying about, it's like a CEO, you thinking about all this high level stuff, and I got to do this and I got to do that. And like Christian said, he's like, man, I don't want to bring this to them. This person needs this more than me. I'm straight. I'm going to be all right. Right? And so, but that's not always, the case. And so when we create an environment where the whole house is healthy, then we can see those things together as a family, right? We can see together as a family, man. So that was, I appreciate you guys, definitely sharing this. So Christian, I just recently, a few months ago, had a really good friend of mine, man, who committed suicide. Um, and I, did his service, really good brother to me, who I called my brother. It was painful. And we all felt like, man, like we weren't there, and we seen his Facebook posts and, all of that type of stuff. And we just like feeling guilty, like, why didn't I see this? And why didn't I see that? So I just need to hear from you, Christian, is like, what can we do, like practical things that we can do to make sure that we support people when they're going through this situation? Because a lot of times we dismiss, like, oh, you'll be all right. Here's a big one. Go pray about it. Right? I get it. But in those moments, is that what you want to just hear?
No, like that's not what anybody wants to hear. You're telling people to like basically just deal with their own problems, and internalize. And that's not, and then that also creates a road and for them to just continue to do that and not ask you anymore. Like if it gets worse, like maybe like the first time like they do it, it helps out a little bit. But if it comes up again, they already know your answer. They already know what you're going to offer them. And it's just them to deal with their own problems. And, you need to be able to be there from the beginning is like a very important thing. And then second, like I would say like you need to like educate yourself on like the things. Not saying that you aren't educated, but like for people that are listening, like read a book about it. Like I have a great book that I read. It's called What Happened to You. It's all about childhood trauma and how that affects you as an adult. And like I picked it up for myself, but I realized like the difference between like other people and me too, and like how to help them with their problems and like understand where they're coming from and like what might be causing these issues. And so educating yourself is like a huge thing. And then also like just creating those environments where like you're there for people, and that like we always need to be there for people, and you need to be like, I always try to like make myself seen as the guy you can come talk to with your problems, and that has definitely led people, like just strangers or random people, to come talk to me. But like I'm not going to push them aside. That's not like what I want to do with my life, and that's not who I want to be. And I think like that's kind of like the mindset we have to have. We have to like indoctrinate this more of a pack mentality than an individual like lone wolf mentality. Like that's just like what kind of beings we are. We need to be there for each other. Like we don't survive if we're not.
I have another question for you. So I'm on the phone with, just say I'm on the phone with a male or female, and they're going through this, How do I know if my job is done, at least for the night? Like, how should I leave or close the door where I know it's safe for me to hang up that telephone? I know I'm putting pressure on you, but people need to know this, right? Like I don't know. So if you don't know the answer, it is what it is, but I do want to know, like, hey, if I'm on the phone and I'm like, all right, I'll talk to you tomorrow, I'm gonna pray for you, right? Because they're like, I feel so much better. But do they? No. So I'm just asking you.
It's just a hard answer. Like it's a hard thing, like way to describe it, because I know what it looks like and I know what it feels like, but it's like hard for you, like me to describe. Like basically, like it always ends like it's not something that you necessarily want to end. If somebody's like coming and talking to you, like give that person as much time as they need to like really get through it, and just like keep asking questions. And then also like don't be afraid to talk about your own experiences or your own problems, like even if it's like maybe like minuscule compared to theirs, or you think that it's minuscule compared to theirs. Like they're not going to think it's minuscule compared to theirs, because they just really want to find like a community. They want to find people to relate to. So they're going to be like, oh, no, like this person does get me to like a certain extent. And so always talk about like your own things and ask questions. Like it's a strange combination, but like when you're truly there for somebody, like you'll figure it out. And then just let them kind of like close it off for themselves. Like one thing that my older brother does is like he just like will sit on the phone, and sometimes we'll just sit in silence, you know, until I'm ready to hang up, until I know that I'm going to be okay and I don't need him anymore,
That's good.
and and then you always stop, like finish it with like, be like, hey, if you need anything, you can always call me. Like, I'm always going to be there for you. Like I love you, like whatever you need, like whatever, like actually like is from the heart, what's from inside,
I love it. I love it, man. This is great practical information, right? Because I'll be honest, there's been times like, because I can be impatient, right? Because I'm like, man, yo, I gotta go. You know what I mean? In my head, you know what I mean? And I'm thinking I did all of this work, and, I empowered them, and they feeling inspired, and they like, yes, I'm ready to take on a day. But that's me hanging up the phone. I concluded that. And so I love what you're saying is that I need to make sure before I hang up that is something that they want to happen, that I need to allow them to lead.
You have to be willing to go the distance. And the distance is not always easy. In fact, it's often uncomfortable. In fact, the last time we had an incident with my daughter, it was late at night and it was ice cold outside. And she left with no shoes, no jacket. She just went out. My son went after her, and finally he came back. He said, Dad, I'm not helping. It's your turn. And so I went out, and, the Spirit directed.
I need to stop there, though. I think that's important, regardless of why he said, I can't go further. But it's important that he recognized the distance that he can go, and he passed the baton off to you.
Yep.
Right? Because we may not be strong enough or have the wherewithal to go the distance.
Or they may not be tapped into what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah.
Right? They may feel that you're too close to it, or you're too distant from it as well, right? And so recognizing that sometimes, and Judy and I were really good about this, especially because we had multiple instances of this, and you could see the buildup, and Judy would come in. All right, do we need to tag team? We had a code word that would help us know when we needed to switch, right? For both of us, but I'll never forget, it was late at night. It was freezing cold. And I'm walking, I'm pursuing my daughter. And I'm like, I'm not sure what to say. And she turns around, she goes, why are you following me? Why do you love me? Why do you keep persisting on following me? I said, because 1, I love you. And 2, I'm always going to go after you. I will always run to you. And you may not be ready for me to close the entire distance, but I will be within arm's reach for that moment when you go, Dad, I need you. And when you say that, I'm going to close the gap all the way, and I'm going to walk with you all the way home.
I like it.
And that's a hard thing, right? It's hard knowing when it's time to turn around. It's hard to know when to turn off the phone. But like Christian says, it's almost got to be it has to be the other person.
I like it.
Right? Because when they're ready, they've made a switch in their mind and in their heart to go, you know what, I can deal with this right now. I've unpacked enough. I can go rest, and I'm going to take on the day tomorrow.
I like it. So Christian, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask both of you guys one more question before we get out of here. Christian, I need you to speak to the men that's on this, that's watching this and that will watch this. I need you to, I don't want to tell you what to say, but I just want you to share something with them.
All right. Well, I think it's important that we understand that, like, this isn't an individual thing. Like, you do have people that want to talk to you, you know, and if you don't, like, there are resources that you can go out and get, but it is important that, like, we learn about this issue. And if you are struggling, like, even if it is like in the slightest amount, like, go grab a book, like, just Google search, you know, like, learn a little bit about, like, this problem, you know, even if you don't actually think that, you know, you're going to get to that point where it's a problem, and, like, just start learning about it. You know, that's one thing that we don't do enough, is we don't, like, pick up the books. We don't do the searches. Like, we need to be able to have, like, an open discussion about it. We need to be educated about it, just like you're educated in your job, and, like, just how you're educated in, like, your relationship with your wife or your, like, girlfriend, like, your spouses and your kids. Like, you need to be educated in all things, you know? And so just, like, grab a book, read a little bit, you know, talk to people about it. Like, talk to people about what you're learning in your book. Like, spread the knowledge, you know? Spread, like, the love that comes with, like, caring for other people and being there for other people. It's contagious, you know? So, and always never be afraid to spend time with people. Like, it's not going to make you feel weak. And never be afraid to talk to people and truly, like, express yourself and be who you are. Like, that's not weakness. Like, that is strength. And people don't understand that. And people need to, like, really have that become, like, part of their core values.
Man, Christian, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you sharing your story and being vulnerable on a Father's Heart podcast. Listen, I know it's not always easy, but, you know, the crazy thing about it, man, is that what you've gone through, and I love that you are on the other side of it. But it wasn't just for you, right? Like, I really believe that you saved somebody's life today, might be tomorrow or the next day, but this video will be here forever until Facebook or somebody destroy it, if they ever destroy it. But just understand, your story will reach millions. And if only one person hear this message and you save their life, well done, brother.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it. I appreciate you serving and being willing to come on and talk. And so, Jody, if you don't mind, I would like for you to share to a parent, what can they do to get through it themselves personally? What can they do? What should they do?
Yeah, boy, unpacking that one. The only way through hell is walking through hell. Right? And a lot of times, I think a lot of times we pray, as we should, we pray to God and we say, God, please take this challenge from me. And it's like we want him with his all omnipotent hand, grab us out of that situation and pluck us over into, you know, green pastures. But there is a refinement that comes through going through the hell of some challenges. And when I look at some of the challenges that we as a family have gone, that Judy and I as parents have prayed and pled and laughed and cried and took long walks together and commiserated and cheered and been each other's biggest fan and support. Through that experience, we were refined. Our character was polished. And the only way to rough off those rough edges of you as a dad, you as a mom, is to go through experiences that cause you to look at yourself and go, what do I need to become for my child? What do I need to become for my wife? But we often tend to look at it from ourselves and we go, all right, how come my needs aren't being served? How come nobody's appreciating the work that I'm doing? Instead of going, you know what, I'm going to be the punching bag, and that's okay. Because as you've told me, be the strength while finding the strength. Right? And so for me, some of the very practical things that Judy and I did to help us through this. Number one, Judy and I worked out, and we still work out every single day together. We have a date night together. In the first 2 years that we adopted our kids, we literally could not leave the house because of the emotional trauma that they were working on. So Judy and I got really creative, and we had date night in our bedroom. We would make cookies, and we would watch Netflix, or we'd go get Ben and Jerry's ice cream, and we'd take a long walk. We got creative. We made time for each other.
Good.
And we also, one of the things that Judy encouraged me to do, and it has been one of the best things that I've ever done, is just like, Jody, I know the days are tough. And you got to figure too, I was also building a business at the same time. And she goes, I need you to keep a gratitude journal. And every day I would write at least 3 things in that journal. And what that did was it enabled me to see God's hand in my life every single day.
That's good, man.
And that's so those are 3 very practical things that we did. And of course, Judy and I mean, from our very early in our marriage, we have always prayed together. And the way you turn a couple into a couple with power is you involve the man upstairs and you turn your couple into a threesome with real power.
I love it. I love
real
it. I love it. You even got your son smiling right there. I love it. So listen, man, we're about to get out of here, but one of the things that we always do before we go, we do a legit or not legit. So we got a couple people on here still. So I need y'all to put in the chat if this is legit or not legit. Before I say that, let me say thank you guys for coming on. Right, I really appreciate it. The wisdom and the information that you guys released tonight is just amazing, man. And thank you for being a servant. Thank you for being a servant and sharing your story with our audience. And so again, you guys got to participate. So I need to know if this is legit or not legit. Is it legit or not legit that after you get done brushing your teeth and you still got a little water left, can you dry your mouth off on your wife's towel? Is that legit or not legit?
Are you gonna take that one?
I don't have a wife, dude.
well, your girl, whoever, is it legit to dry your mouth off on their towel?
I use my own towels, so
So is it legit or not legit?
Not legit. Like I don't want her using my towels for her stuff. Too.
You don't want slobber.
I will share. If it needs to happen, like obviously I'd be okay with sharing.
But on the daily, not legit. Yeah. In emergency, legit.
Yo.
I don't need you foaming on the mouth on my towel.
Yo, so I am gonna say it's legit.
Yeah,
I got caught. Listen, I got caught this morning. Her towel was right by where I was, man.
Yeah.
And I turned around and she was looking. She was like, I know you're not. I'm like, I'm sorry. I've been doing it for I don't know how many months.
That's part of being one.
Yeah. So I can't do it no more. Hey, man, I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Thank you for popping
Love you,
in. All the followers out there, thank you for staying in. Stan Hannah, what it do, man? Good to see you, man. Love you, brother. Miss Kelsey Williams, thank you for chiming in. I see you laughing over there in the comment section. So we appreciate you guys. Listen, we'll be back here next week, same time. Listen, you guys have a phenomenal week. All right. So we love you, man. Be blessed. Till next time.